Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to the Digital Empowerment Project, Module 2 on live streaming events, tours, and programs. This topic has become very important in this past year, so we're delighted to have you with us here today. The Digital Empowerment Project is a nationwide initiative organized by the 6 U.S. regional museum associations dedicated to providing free, self-paced training resources focused on digital media and technology for small museums. This series of online webinars and toolkits is made possible by funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. My name is Dan Yeager, and I'm the Executive Director of the New England Museum Association. My pronouns are in the he series, and I'm a white male with gray hair pulled back and a close-cropped beard. Today I'm wearing a round, dark-rimmed eyeglasses, a blue and white striped shirt, and I'm sitting in front of a large bookcase in my home office. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the places in which we gather. In this era of virtual meetings, when digital spaces may substitute our physical sense of place, it's important to reflect on the land we each occupy and honor the indigenous people who have called it home. I'm speaking to you from Swampscott, Massachusetts, the historical homelands of the Massachusetts peoples. Wherever we are, let us acknowledge all indigenous nations as living communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. We, the Digital Empowerment Project team, recognize that our organizations and those of our members were founded within a colonizing society that perpetuated the exclusions and erasures of many Native peoples throughout the United States and beyond. We ask you to reflect on the place where you reside and work, and to respect the diversity of cultures and experiences that form the richness of our world and our profession. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for today's technical workshop, Audience Participation in Live Stream Programs, who is Alex Freeman, Executive Director of the Texas Association of Museums. Since 2012, Alex's work has focused on how new technologies impact teaching and learning in formal and informal learning spaces. Prior to his experience at the Texas Association of Museums, Alex served nearly 6 years at the New Media Consortium, where he managed membership services and produced online professional development programs. Alex was a co-author and researcher for the NMC Horizon Report series, which analyzed technology uptake across global museums, higher education, K-12 education, and a few other sectors and regions. And prior to his experience there, Alex was the education director at Mexicarte Museum in Austin and education curator at ArtSpace San Antonio. We're so grateful to Alex for joining us today. Please welcome Alex Freeman.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you out there. Good to virtually see you out there. And thank you, David, for that nice introduction. Okay, so you've mastered the art of live streaming a program to YouTube using StreamYard, the broadcasting portion, if you will. Congratulations. When I was a kid, broadcasting was all I had to look forward to in the 1980s. I used to run my finger up and down the TV guide looking for my programs. One time I visited my sister in the big city in the 90s, and they had a scrolling menu TV channel just for that. That was very fancy to me. Experience TV really changed when I saw American Idol in the early aughts. I could actually vote and shape the content that I was watching in front of me. That form of engagement continues to grow and become more sophisticated with computers in our pockets and easily available digital tools. Let's say, take Ask a Curator Day, for example. That started in 2010 to make Twitter less of a broadcasting tool and more of a two-way conversation with keepers of the cultural heritage through these Q&As. Twitter is fairly easy to use. You can create an account and then follow influential people or cats or dogs and send them messages in 280 characters. Nowadays, the keyboard is only one of the tools we can use to connect with each other. Like it or not, we have become video producers. To have a conversation in the virtual realm, you will need to know how to have a voice. That means understanding that your laptop, smartphone is a powerful tool. With the right accessories to capture video, project video, and speak or listen in some cases, you can join in the conversation and shape what is happening in front of you. What I'm going to discuss today are just some of the ways in which you can increase audience participation during a live streamed event. I'll break down the major modes of live streaming and the tools that can take them to the next level. Our first section is on use cases. We will dive into parts of Zoom that will enhance what you learned in the previous session, and then we'll look at some add-ons that you can add to any streaming service. We'll reserve some time at the end for some questions. So we'll move on with my presentation here. Before we get started with the tools you can use to engage with your curious audience, let's start with a few of the case uses that museums and cultural organizations are creating to increase engagement with online visitors. Some take more of a live question and answer approach, while others only work if the audience is active throughout the complete experience. Interviews and performances. Perhaps the lowest barrier of entry is adding participatory elements to broadcasts of interviews or performances. Just like an Ask a Curator Day, you can tap into your, I don't know about that. Like Ask a Curator Day, you can tap your in-house experts to share their knowledge in a live streamed question and answer session. Host a laid-back Ask Me Anything on a social media, or invite speakers or artists to give talk or performance. Everything from TED Talk styles to dance performances or intimate interviews are fair game. Interactive games and contests can also increase engagement. The Contemporary Art Museum of Houston, their teen council created a Zoom interview event focused on social artivism with 2 artists from different generations. It was moderated by 2 teen council members through an open Q&A. They collectively learned more about the artist's practices and how social activism is activated throughout their work. The program ended with a Q&A. At the Abe Museum, dedicated to exploring the cultural and heritage of Maine's native people, they created digital AMIM, a 2-day online event where event goers got the chance to meet some of 2021 Indian market artists, learn more about them, their processes, and their body of work. This allowed artists to connect digitally with the community to educate and also sell their wares. In addition to spotlighting artists, digital AMIM included performance, educational programming, and some trivia. Now, behind the scenes tours. Technology can provide even greater access to your spaces and collections through behind the scenes tours. It can open up a whole new set of possibilities for online visitors, giving them a sneak behind the curtain. Museums, galleries, historic sites can offer viewers glimpses into what it's like to visit. Like you learned in the previous workshop, museums are already delivering and recording their live programs in Zoom and other ways, and then broadcasting and posting their finished videos on YouTube pages. The Everson Museum of Art in downtown Syracuse is a major central New York museum focusing on American art that has amassed a large catalog of object-based tours and interviews. Their curator of ceramics began exploring common and rarely seen objects from their collections, and he started that during weekly sessions starting in March of 2020. Get creative with these special tours. Even hidden spaces within the museum can delight and engage. At the Chicago History Museum, you can take a virtual tour with the director of properties as he leads online visitors through the building's nooks and crannies. The operations and oddities behind the scenes virtual tour explored additions and renovations, and they even scaled the roof. For more complex topics or sequential museum programs, webinars, virtual workshops, and online classes might work well. These formats can offer deep dives around specific themes, skill sets, tools, and more. For the kiddos in the New Orleans area, the Ogden Museum of Southern Art collaborated with the Hellas Foundation on the Young Audience of Louisiana series, Baby Arts Play. These 30-minute online sessions engage families and toddlers using the museum's collection of Southern art as a starting point. This learning series focused on sensory play, language development, learning about body movement, and more. At the Mayborn Museum up the road from me in Waco, they created the award-winning Mayborn Connect program. It's a real-time, bi-directional video programming streamed to learners via the internet using whichever video conferencing platform you use. The training programs give online visitors direct access to museum educators like they've never had before. 4 themed interactive participation encouraged presentations, educate invoke curiosity and entertain these young learners. To participate, registrants will be expected to have the equipment and actively manage the meeting rooms by muting and unmuting students and taking the control over there. Schools must also have equipment and authorization to host to monitor the event and bring the Mayborn speaker to the guest of the school. Even large-scale events can have a virtual component. For AAM's annual meeting to South by Southwest here in Austin, live conferences and summits have been streamed online so that people who can't attend in person can get access. Well, that nice-to-have feature has become a must-to-have feature for any museum affected by shutdowns, especially those with educational missions. But over the last year, there have been many conferences that have taken place entirely online with networking and meetings integrated too. Although I do not currently work in a museum, I've been creating online participatory experiences since 2014. I recently stumbled across this post from the blog Art Museum Teaching, and it promoted the New Media Consortium's Future of Museums Symposium that I created and brought together a collaborative global conversation around issues of technology, museums, and the future. Have the tools greatly improved since then. I used Google Hangouts for that symposium, but it went a long way to help me understand how to create audience participation in a live streamed event. Most recently, I hosted with a large team of us, the Texas Association of Museums annual meeting virtually just a month ago. And increasing audience participation was top of mind for me. We used the virtual platform Whova, which combines Zoom functions with breakout rooms and other engagement tools such as gamified elements, interactive message boards, speed networking, and more. And the attendees liked it. They said this conference was organized and happened on a single platform. It was easy to find more information and engage with speakers. Whova as a conference app was a phenomenal decision. Next, can we say it all? But it really was the opportunity to feel included. That gets lost in other meetings. So it was refreshing to know my opinion was valued. Overall, I think just the fact that the system was user-friendly, it was totally a more relaxed learning atmosphere, and I was able to attend some of the talk sessions and actually participate. And then finally, the fact that I can go back and listen and review these for 3 months is a total success for me. Also, being able to interact with everyone via messaging system during and after sessions gives the ability to carry on conversations with more than one person and without feeling I'm being rude. Indeed, the shared authority that you have once you teach people how to use the different functions made it for a lively event. A group of museums and scholars make up the Center for the Advancement of and Study of Early Texas Art, CASETA. The goals there are to create serious interest as well as enjoyment and appreciation of early Texas art through funding of research, publications, and a yearly symposium. After a break in 2020, CASETA is going to return with a virtual fall forum later this year. So we're already starting to see some of those symposia start moving into this direction. As you can see from the use cases above, there are many formats to digitally share the people, spaces, and objects that form the identity of your museum or cultural institution. Next, we'll dive into ways in which you can use other tools such as Zoom and add-ons to create greater audience participation, it's a hard one, in your online programs and events. In the previous workshop, we learned how to use StreamYard to provide you more control on how you broadcast programming from your museum to viewers on YouTube. The benefits of that tool are boundless, and it even allows you to see some of the comments in YouTube while the live program is in progress that can be monitored and communicated to the broadcasters and then me eventually. The primary difference between StreamYard and Zoom, with the exception of StreamYard's cost and accessibility features, is that StreamYard and the webinar feature in Zoom, there's more of a virtual wall during a broadcast between the museum and viewer, meaning that the focus is on me, the presenter, and controlling the presentation rather than engaging with viewers in real time. In some cases, you may not even see anyone else in the broadcast or webinar besides the host. And that can be scary if you're a host. I've been in those situations where I can't read the room. So I'm having to present in a very different way. Engagement really happens when you virtually populate the room with people who can message or ask questions anytime during the program. So if you can make it a meeting, you can mute everyone, but it's just nice to be able to see people and be able to connect that way. Yeah, so here's a slide I took from the previous session, which kind of talks about Zoom and StreamYard, and a little bit of hybrid of both there for that. Now I'm going to talk about other tools built into other services that you can add to increase audience participation. We'll start with a dive into Zoom's capabilities and then chat about some other add-ons to consider. It's likely that you have not made it through the pandemic without it being at least 1 or 12 Zoom video calls. Like many video conferencing tools, Zoom enables you to host a meeting or webinar with familiar audio and video features. You may get a free Zoom account that provides 40 minutes of meeting time. If you pay for a professional version, you can do much more for a monthly subscription. I believe Zoom offers a special nonprofit discount, and you can also get discounts through partners like TechSoup and Nonprofit Rate. Those are 2 websites that you can get discounts on software. Like many video conferencing tools, Zoom enables you to host a meeting or webinar with those familiar features. Understanding those key features are important because without a computer and a video camera and headphones, you don't have a voice and won't be able to communicate in a 21st century way. We became highly skilled in working in the 20th century using telephones, fax machines, copy machines, filing cabinets, and the mail. Times have changed, and modern work tools and approaches have changed the office space. If you haven't been in an Office Depot or Office Max lately, the change is striking. Most of the store is devoted to furniture now, and envelopes and folders and other equipment take up a shrinking amount of space in the back. Look at this image out of the 60s, maybe a Mad Men era. Not much has changed from that time in the 60s until I got my first office job in 1997, except for there's now, these desks probably had cubicle walls and a very, very slow desktop computer with my only choice of green or white font. You can't participate if your audience can't connect. That being said, maybe you are more comfortable with the written word, typed word, or that is the only way you can best communicate. If that is the case, then you can participate and shape a program through other means. They include chat to all or a specific person in the meeting, taking part in a poll, raising your hand, adding an emoji such as clapping, thumbs up, love, laugh, wow, celebrate, or contribute a question through a Q&A. There are a growing number of reactions, including you can say yes, no, speed up, or slow down now. In Zoom, you can create breakout rooms, which enable you to take a large group and break them into smaller groups, just like it sounds, with more audience participation. Picture a traditional before times exhibition opening where the director climbs a few steps up the staircase and she addresses a crowd below of 100 or so people. After a welcome and description of the show, they invite you to gather in small groups where a docent leads a tour. In that smaller group, you can have more intimate experience and ask questions about the objects, spaces, and people presented. As you can imagine, besides a few people that can grab a microphone and ask a question in that large hall, it is difficult to have a meaningful dialogue or discussion in that plenary format. Event breakout meeting ideas are just one of the ways you can bring your attendees together for meaningful conversations, thought leadership, and professional networking. The beauty of these sessions, groups, or meetings is that they're small, structured groupings lead to more natural conversations on focused topics. In addition, your speakers have a better chance to get to hear everyone's questions and mingle within that group. Zoom breakouts work in the following way. Decide how many breakout rooms you'd like and then give them names. It is best to have a host per room if possible to orient and lead a discussion, possibly serve as the recorder. Or you can assign the people that are in the rooms those different roles. After you've created the rooms, then you choose the option of assigning each person automatically, manually, or let participants choose at random. You can change your view from the Brady Bunch style grids to presenter mode if someone is describing an object, for example. In breakouts, your video, camera, and chat work the same way as when everyone is in a larger meeting. If you're looking for step-by-step guides on how to access tools within Zoom, there are a couple of resources I've included in this workshop. The Think in Museums post, 6 quick-fire ways to improve your Zoom confidence, is a great place to start. Bonus tips includes setting small goals, keeping it simple, watch other breakouts and take notes, and take time to debrief. If you're more vain like me, here's another resource aimed at CEO, directors, and higher level museum positions. This entrepreneur.com article, 25 ways to make your Zoom meetings awesome, has great illustrations of how to make yourself look great and some etiquette and things about how to help you rock your presentation, such as avoiding backlighting. As a nod to our previous presenter and magician, David, I included a clip that states, "Make every moment magical," which encourages you to have some cool objects nearby. One of the things I love about museum folks is their love of objects and materiality. So this should be an easy one for this group. And lastly, for educators or anyone wanting to deeply engage with groups of people, there is a great handout from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln called Team Building Activities and Icebreakers for the Virtual Environment that goes into greater detail. I encourage you to look at other resources that are out there instead of redefining the wheel. Things change and approaches change. Also, make sure you have a clear vision or clear reason why you're creating a breakout room. Whether it's an opportunity to share ideas, to network, discuss ideas raised in an interview or plenary session, whatever the reason, be clear about it. And most importantly, communicate this to your audiences so they are prepared and get the most out of it. All people learn and process information differently, so provide instructions on how the breakout sessions will work in formats: verbally, via slide on the screen, via chat box, and as an email link with a PDF containing instructions, including links and the names of various breakout sessions. The UK group GEM, or Group for Education in Museums, has been thinking and writing a lot about education outside of the museum. Their post on breakout rooms brings up some salient points about why to use breakout rooms. They mentioned something I stated earlier about modes of communication. In a breakout room, you may engage through text or through speech and video. This provides both extroverts and introverts a new opportunity to learn and collaborate. They state that because of this, we need to normalize people having their cameras and microphones off. No, you don't need to give anyone a reason for why your camera is not on, or no one should ask. Let's encourage an atmosphere of trust, which can free people up to interact in a way they feel most comfortable. They also encourage the normalization of the chat function. They suggest be clear before breakout rooms happen that people can choose to talk through the chat and through in a group with someone doing this. Should make sure that they're including comments in the discussion, and not that doesn't mean telling them to turn their mic on. The 4 key takeaways I got from this article were really: 1, is your breakout room valuable to attendees? 2, inform attendees of the use of breakout rooms prior to sessions. 3, set out a clear code of conduct for the breakout rooms. And 4, do everything you can to ensure people will feel safe and confident during that breakout room. Beyond hosting in-depth discussions, breakouts allow for real-time brainstorming when paired with additional tools. In some instances, event producers ask attendees to fill out a brief survey at the beginning of a program that they will gather information about educational interests, likes, dislikes, preferences, and will match them with similar attendees and content through an event. This is especially useful for summit and conference breakout sessions. Use this technology to your advantage and gather attendees together to match your content objectives. This Harvard Business Review's post, "Break Up Your Big Virtual Meetings," highlights research that encourages one to rethink brainstorming session in breakouts. They state, "The benefits of embracing silence during meetings to better leverage the ideas, perspective, and insights of all attendees. Silent brainstorming produces significantly more ideas than brainstorming out loud. And these ideas tend to be more creative and of higher quality." They say you can increase the quality of audience participation by sharing work documents such as a Google Doc that's shareable to attendees in advance of a breakout with key questions they need to address during the meeting. Further, they state when meetings are large in size, more than 6 attendees, voices are even more risk of becoming lost. Attendees may miss the opportunity to contribute, feel uncomfortable dominating the discussion, or fear talking over others. All of this should be considered if you want to dive into breakouts. Okay, so you have a handle on what breakouts are and how they can generally be used. Here are a couple examples of how museums are actually leveraging breakouts in their programming. They range from traditional small group discussions to deep brainstorming on contemporary issues. While the Nasher Museum is closed, groups can sign up for a guided tour on the Zoom platform to look at and discuss works of art from the Nasher's Museum's permanent collection. Within the collection galleries and other available virtual exhibitions. The gallery guide leads all the discussions with interactive, which are interactive and last about 75 minutes. Sessions are limited to 12 to 15 participants. If your group is larger than 15, then they arrange to break those into other breakout rooms. Online audience groups can select from both the virtual exhibitions or themes that educators can put together. So a lot more flexibility. This may be hard to see, but the SoCal Museums and Cultural Connections collaborated last summer during a heavy period of civil unrest on the virtual program Dismantling Systemic Racism in Cultural Institutions, a Conversation, created for attendees to share and generate actionable anti-racist initiatives for cultural institutions. They discussed focused questions in small group conversations, and answers were recorded by each breakout room facilitator. The responses reflect what the participants felt comfortable sharing and recording. It may be hard to read, so I'm going to read some of this out loud. One of the questions was, what big or small steps have you or your colleagues taken within your institution to combat racism in museums? And some of the responses include re-envisioning our equity team, seeking out external help, and examining hiring practices. So you know that they did a lot of thinking there in that breakout. Other tools. Here's my magic portion of the presentation. The whiteboard, a staple in classroom and office spaces, has taken the digital leap. So you can pair the benefits of virtually thinking, teaching, and collaborating with the convenience of technology. Zoom contains a built-in whiteboard feature that will allow you to share a whiteboard that you and other participants can annotate, draw, or type on. This tool can be helpful for collaborative projects, as well as many activities that might involve a drawing or typing element. Zoom also has a built-in polling capabilities. Polls are great for quickly getting a feel for the room. I wish I could have polled this group here today. For example, it may ask, how familiar are you with the topic of this program? You may be very knowledgeable, somewhat knowledgeable, or not knowledgeable at all. That would be very helpful for me. That type of poll may help the presenter adjust their information accordingly. We'll talk more about polling and other ways to gather information from audiences in the next section. In conclusion, Zoom has a lot of built-in tools and that increase audience participation with the chats, reactions, breakouts, interactive whiteboards, and polls. Now let's explore some other tools you can add on, plug in, or generally layer with another type of streaming service outside of Zoom. Plugin is a form of software add-on that is installed on a program, enhancing its capabilities. For example, if you wanted to watch a video on a website, you may need a plugin to do so. If the plugin is not installed, your browser will not understand how to play that video. So not all add-ons are plugins. They're simply digital tools that you can use in conjunction with streaming service that don't need extra know-how to program, such as using a Google form to gather information or Google Doc to collaborate during a program. You can use polls and surveys to greatly enhance audience participation, as I mentioned before. It's kind of like the American Idol I used during my intro. By providing the opportunity to gather feedback in advance or live, online visitors can shape the conversation, and it gives presenters a feel for the room. Live polling and surveying can occur in real time during a streamed or breakout session to gather data, to promote commentary and idea sharing. Ask attendees questions surrounding content to pick their brains. If you are in a live event, you can use a moderator to filter questions and keep things organized. That way you can focus on answering questions and interacting with attendees. You may want to consider a mock live format. I might have thought about that today, where you record the presentation that you're giving, and then you play it and you sit in the audience and you can engage with the audience in real time. I did that quite successfully in the last two virtual conferences I developed over the pandemic. Perhaps the most ubiquitous survey software that I've seen is Surveymonkey. It's a cloud-based survey software as a service that can be used on its own, or there is a Surveymonkey add-on for Zoom. In that arrangement, after the add-on is installed, you can create surveys and collect results right within Zoom's chat. Surveymonkey presents all the tools necessary for you to easily create professional surveys. Its features are based on pricing plans, but the free pricing plan gives you access to just basic tools to create, really good surveys. The basic plan is limited, basic, 10 questions, only limited to 100 people, but you can choose from a variety of templates and survey type questions. There's three different types of questions that Surveymonkey has: the closed-ended, open-ended, and descriptive. Analysis happens in real time, and results are viewed as respondents complete their survey. So it's nice to see that getting filled out. The basic plan has all the features you need, including that customer support. And alternatively, I've seen and used Poll Everywhere in some live stream events. So you see there's a couple different tools that are out there. I'm a big fan of using Google's ecosystem of free and low-cost products for audience engagement. I use Google Docs and Slides to create this presentation. Google Forms lets you plan your next exhibition, manage event registrations, whip up a poll, collect email addresses for a newsletter, create a pop quiz, and more. You can choose from a bunch of question options from multiple choice to drop down to a linear scale. Responses to your surveys are neatly and automatically collected in Google Forms with real-time response info and charts. You can add collaborators to let anyone, your friends, volunteers, coworkers, build your survey with you, just like with docs, sheets, and slides. There are other highly rated add-ons, including Qualtrics and Alchemer. That was formerly known as a Survey Gizmo. These are designed to be even more powerful than Surveymonkey with their own particular features. With the rise of sophistication also comes the rise of cost. So have a good understanding of why and how you're using these survey before exploring subscription models. Qualtrics, for example, is PCMag.com's editor's pick for it has the most direct question manipulation options. They state that while products such as Alchemer can import questions from pre-formatted Microsoft Word documents, and many packages let you edit a previous survey as a template, Qualtrics enables you to import questions from previous surveys at any point in the survey design process. This can be a big time saver when dealing with complex questions. There's dozens of survey tools out there, but these are just a few basic and advanced solutions to get you started. Lastly, let's explore interactive whiteboards and similar virtual discussion boards. There are a few critical features to consider if you are looking for the best digital board experience. Unlimited canvas. While physical whiteboards can certainly have size restrictions, going digital should mean you're no longer limited to how big or complex your visualizations are. I know that besides PowerPoint, there's a Prezi option, which is to me is an expansive universe of space, and not a step-by-step presentation. So that's kind of thinking about that in that way. Another thing about whiteboards are the collaboration features. Cloud apps should allow for easy collaboration. Real time is really preferred, and comments by users. Desktop apps should allow adequate cloud file sharing, syncing across devices. The whiteboard should have the ability to share, to attach files. I often share links or documents in the collaborative setting. But you can also share images and other things like sticky notes, one of my favorites. Presentation options. Because whiteboards are often so at the core of collaborative process, you should be able to share your digital whiteboard online or export it. And another key feature that you should look for is being able to be accessible on mobile devices. Whether you're on your own, working on your own ideas, or collaborating with a team, chances are that you'd like to have access to that whiteboard, even if you're not seated at your desk. In the virtual conference we hosted at Texas Association of Museums in April, I chose to use Google Jamboards to collect reflections or quotes for each keynote and breakout session we offered. We were able to collect those responses and close out our week-long event through a discussion around our shared experience. A Jamboard is an interactive whiteboard, or bulletin board, if you will, available to anyone with a Google account. Jamboards can be found in the app tray on the Google homepage or by going to jamboard.google.com. Once on the landing page, a user is able to create a jam or virtual canvas. We're able to draw, create shapes, lines, and text. There are also erasers and ways to move objects, as well as create digital sticky notes. As I mentioned, one of my favorite things. I have literally sticky notes all over the place, whether they're live or digital. One online resource I have referred to when choosing a tool is the Capterra.com website. It is a free online marketplace vendor that serves as a middleman between buyer and technology software vendors. It assists customers with selecting software based on needs, user reviews, and other research. Searching for competitors to Jamboard, I found the following two comparable products that interestingly start with the letter M. Miro and Mural. Miro has a free trial version and starts at $10 per month. It is best for creative industries such as graphics and web design companies and consultants. Miro's visual workflow management and project planning set it apart from Jamboard. Mural, on the other hand, has a free trial version that starts at $12 per month and is best for any remote teams looking to collaborate using roadmaps, diagrams, and other graphics. It surpasses Jamboard in features and is listed as a top pick on the website. So I have some resources that we can share, but Capterra is where I go. And you can really use that for any of the products that I mentioned today if you're trying to figure out which one are right for you and for the right size. To conclude, now you are aware of some of the tools and methods that are available for increasing audience participation in live stream programs. Most importantly, you're learning about new ways of working and, more importantly, connecting with others in the 21st century. Although I've been working in this way for a long time as a researcher and professional development provider, you too can learn to increase engagement at a distance. Understanding the basic concepts here will give you a base of skills to be resilient no matter what the world brings. I'd like to end my presentations by first thanking the team at Museum Learning Hub and you for taking time to listen today. And also share this quote. The future is already here. It's just not very evenly distributed. That's William Gibson, an author. With that, I wanted to make sure that we had plenty of time to answer questions around any of the topics that I covered today. I know there's a lot to take in, but you can really take your programs to the next level. And I believe that you will get a lot of you'll grow your audiences and be able to have more meaningful events that way.
Well, thank you, Alex. It was a terrific presentation. Appreciate it. Let's call on our attendees to submit your questions in the chat, and folks will relay them to me. It seems like our questions so far, a couple of them had to do with sort of I don't want to say controlling speech. It sounds wrong, but how do you create the sort of privacy issues? Consider privacy issues and ground rules, perhaps, for encouraging ways in which people communicate. I know somebody asked about Zoom bombing is something. So whenever you invite audience participation, there's a little bit of a risk involved with just what kinds of comments come out of there. How do you manage that, control it as the presenter?
Well, within Zoom, there's a lot of controls in the control settings that you can start from the beginning. Once you create an event or a meeting, you can describe, there's a number of security options that you can check off in the beginning so that only the people that are supposed to be in that room are in that room, so that you don't get bombed. So either passcodes are required. I prefer, I like to have a waiting room. Zoom has a setting where you can have a waiting room and you can let people in one by one. What that does is if you have a large group that comes in, you can start seeing who's coming in after that group. And I used that a lot in the conference last year. Was that we had a virtual ballroom, which is just one Zoom room, and then 2 other auxiliary Zoom rooms. So somebody would come to that Zoom room. I would see when they came in. I would allow them access and then be able to point them in the direction of where they needed to go. So the settings, you can really, I think Zoom has done quite a bit of work over the past year on increasing security and the controls. And so really it's just understanding that control panel on the back, on the back end. Let's see, and then there were some interesting questions about, and I think if you're going to be going into breakouts, the resources that I shared around breakouts, I think are really good because they make you think about things such as your policies and procedures and why you're doing these. What is your why are you doing it just to try something new? Or are you really trying to get some information from folks? Are you truly trying to build some knowledge together? So developing some process documents is really important. And that's where you can put in your event code of conduct. We've been thinking a lot about that too, because it's a different type of event. But there is controls that you can have, and it's good to be very thoughtful on how you develop your process documents.
Well, explain for us the difference between pre-registering for event as a way to control, then who your audience is versus an event that's sort of a public event that you might publicize via social media and have people, it's a difference, right?
Yes, that is a good question, Dan, or good statement, because it is different. And I haven't really thought about that. It's rare that I've done something that I think within, I know within Zoom you can broadcast to Facebook, any event that you have, but there's no that person who's watching on Facebook is not able to Zoom the room, bomb the Zoom room, because
they're not in.
No, they're separated. So, I rarely have things that don't require some type of registration. An open event, I think I would, I think you have the control to mute everyone.
Right.
It's, and I think that's the one thing. And I think about that as like in the before times, the pulling the microphone away. Sometimes somebody at the end of a conference or a session will, really bring out some challenging things that you want to get straightened out. So yeah, that is a consideration. But I think registration is a good way of it is an added step, but it does provide greater control than a just, otherwise I think you're probably in a better, it's hard to have a participatory thing when you don't know who the audience is and what your objectives are.
Well, have you, in your experience with these live streamed events, noticed a difference between a meeting format versus a webinar format? And in a webinar format such as this, you're limited to interaction via a chat, and that's pretty much it. Whereas the meeting format, you actually do have people coming into the room and so forth, and able to talk, as we know. So that's slightly different. Have you seen like a difference in terms of the audience and their satisfaction with the event and just feedback? I'd much rather be in a big, the big space with a gallery, or I'm very content with just doing the chat thing. Yeah, that's a good one. And my perspective, as long as you're very clear as to what format you're going to be using, and I typically do larger events where there's registration, and you kind of like, these are the this is how we're going to record you, and you will be seen, and you don't have to have your camera on, but yeah, webinars and meetings are very different. And I mentioned that in this presentation, there is a wall, and right now I'm seeing that wall, which is, I don't know who is watching right now. I don't know how many people are watching. I'm not sure what they're responding to. I was in a conference where there was supposed to be 800 people there, and I felt like I was the only one there. Right. I felt lonely at a big conference. And that was because the webinar function, which provides you that greater control, also made, it controlled me out of my interest. Mm-hmm. There's many things about meetings that are not just about presenting information. It's about connecting with others. Mm-hmm. So that's why I like the meeting function, is because, hey, there's Carol, or there's Justin. Right. I can send them a quick little message, kind of a little side chat, as you would if you were sitting next to each other. So that, not that you're disrespecting the presenter, but it gives you another opportunity to see who's there. And I prefer that style, because you're missing out on one of the best things you can do from gathering people, is to allow them to connect with each other. Well, I imagine it sort of has something to do with how you plan your strategy for the event at the very beginning, because ultimately a webinar it's great for a presentation, but the audience is limited pretty much to asking follow-up questions, and there's less of a feedback, comment, building on and layering the discussion. Whereas, in real life, of course, you've got that automatically happening, perhaps in a small group setting, but in a meeting, at least possibly have, oh yeah, to what she said, I'm building on that. And so as an event planner, I think that modality at the very beginning is what you have to sort of think strategically about what's going to work best for your objectives for this particular event and your audience, right?
Yeah, that's why I mentioned the mock live format.
Mm-hmm.
I might have suggested that for this as an experiment, which means the presentation that I just gave, I could have recorded, and I could have played it, and I could have sat in and watched with people and saw what people were doing in real time.
Right.
You know, that you got thinking about separating the presentation from engagement is you know, you can do that, because I can't really answer questions while I'm giving a presentation. But if that is a transferring information, and I can be in with the people that are watching and engaging, then that's how you can do it in webinars.
Right. Now, thinking ahead to the future, and what was your last slide? The future is now, or something. But I'm understanding that hybrid events are going to become more and more important. We're getting used to the Zoom experience, but you know, we're about ready to go back in real life. But now, you know, we want the best of both worlds. So I'm understanding for like our conferences, for example, there's a demand a little bit more for a hybrid experience. How does that work out in your mind in terms of, you know, kind of, you know, having the audience participation in the conference room, say, and then also having, you know, a Zoom feed with people acting remotely? How would you triage participation questions building on that? Is that, or am I throwing you a curveball?
No, not at all. Not at all. In the before times when I was doing programs, I knew there was a capability of live streaming things, but I like to privilege one audience at a time. And the audience that was there with me was the audience that I would privilege. Mm-hmm. When we began starting to stream, and then you're having your focused attention on the streaming and not on the live. So yeah, I think we're at an interesting point now that I think we are truly headed toward a hybrid future. The responses to the virtual event that we put on this year were really helped ground the fact that we need to do this. We got a survey that came back, and 90% of the people that filled out the survey were members, mm-hmm. But only 60% had been to an annual meeting before. Right. So we got an entire new audience. And so once we started drilling down in the comments, they said, you know, Alex, I'm a museum educator. I'm the only person at the museum, and April is the busiest time of month for me. I've never attended an annual meeting because I just can't get there. This is the first time I could. Mm-hmm. So as I'm planning for next year, I want to figure out what elements can we share with a live audience, and then what elements can we think about for a 100% virtual audience. So I'm thinking maybe we have some streaming keynotes or engaging conversations in that way. You know, the great thing about online was that we got Lonnie Bunch from the Smithsonian to come in and chat with us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, keynotes are a great place to have a hybrid experience where we're all watching it, whether we're seated in a ballroom or at home. I think that they're finding things that can allow you that. And then the other thing that I've been thinking of is okay, once you have everything recorded, maybe you do go back and do a mock live best of that face-to-face conference where you take those presentations, you bring those speakers back to have some time with that virtual audience. So yeah, it's going to be you know, there's going to be hybrid parts of our future conferences, and I think some of the access that we're able to provide for folks, whether it was through health or money or whatever reason they couldn't make it, we were able to have an event. And I think that's very special. And I think people want to have some content that is hybrid.
Well, now playing on what you just said about having some interaction after the live streaming event, if I heard you correctly, and this is really interesting, like how do you engage people that may be watching recordings of the live streamed event so that it has a lot of you know, an afterlife, so to speak, of things? And do you encourage interaction somehow via, like in the Museum Learning Hub, we're encouraging folks to be part of the online community to, you know, watch these things and then drop their comments in as we move forward? Is that sort of a typical practice, or are there other options?
Yeah, you know, I think that's by doing a best of, I think you can, that mock live is where it's at, because there's a lot of work that goes into presenting something. But inviting that speaker to come back and reflect on what they saw together, I think that seems like maybe that's what we do. Either you have a keynote, a live keynote, and then you join us at a future date for a in a discussion group around the keynote. That may be a way of doing things.
Right. Now, there were a couple of questions in the chat that had to do with surveying and specifically accessibility are kind of interesting. So the question was, how accessible are these survey tools? I remember many years ago, Survey Gizmo was preferred to Surveymonkey because it was more accessible to screen readers. Not sure if that is still the case. How do people with needs fully access the live streamed events?
Yeah, those are I'm learning more and more about accessibility, and it's important. It's very important. The comparisons, I think you have to do a lot of digging. Like if I look at Capterra, I don't think they speak a lot towards accessibility or how that works for certain audiences. I really like what David created because they took a look at, they made a checkbox and said, oh, well, how does this work? Does this work well with this group? That's why we went with StreamYard. It allows us greater control and the opportunity to have an ASL interpreter. So I think there could be some more work to go towards making that an important aspect to put into those review systems.
Tell me a little bit about your philosophy of facilitating a session and encouraging audience participation. And I know, when I've done it in a real life conference room setting, you can read the room, so to speak. You can kind of get the sense of the energy. You can see people sometimes if you've got the formal mic in the middle of the audience and a line of people, you kind of know, what who's coming up next or whatever. Hard to do when you're online. How do you prioritize people? How do you sort of keep the conversation moving in a meeting format? Or, in this case, the chat thing, it's a little easier because you just read the questions. But I guess I'm thinking about a meeting. How do you keep the room from being dead air and crickets sometimes, which sometimes happens, especially, in the more informal things?
Yeah. We reinvented our TAM talks, is what we had called them in the past. And that is an interesting way of approaching what you're talking about. And what we did for this conference this year was we had certain topics directed at certain audience. For example, there was one of the topics was, there needs to be more women artists in permanent collections. And so there was why aren't there more women in permanent collections? And so that talk started with an idea, and it drew an audience of people that are interested in that idea. And we put a facilitator in that room that started talking about their idea, where what is the issue, what's the challenge, what are some solutions that we can do to approach that, just kind of like that breakout slide I showed. And then the ability to go into breakouts with facilitators and come up with a series of questions that you can have that really, questions are the beginning of everything. And sometimes dead air is okay. In this research, I realized, the more time you get to look at the questions that are going to happen in that space and what's, then you're kind of doing your homework in advance and not being like, oh, well, I guess I need to say something. So really, questions, a facilitator, a title that really resonates with a certain type of audience, being very specific, being challenge-based, being problem-based. Those are ways that I've seen success within the online space, especially with going into a breakout session, is really just have a good direction, have good questions, and have some help.
Does the same apply to the most informal networking kinds of things? Because in this past year we've needed to replicate just getting together and mingle and whatever as we used to in the hotel bar, say, or whatever. And of course, the conversation isn't quite as organic. So when you're the organizer of an informal meetup type of a thing to encourage just networking, do you come loaded with questions or icebreakers and that type of thing? Again, the dead air, or do you just sort of let it all happen and we've created the space?
Yeah, and that's interesting. We did a speed networking chat roulette thing within our conference app. That if you wanted to, you could get thrown in for, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes at a table with four seats.
Right.
And it was, you never know what you were going to get, but I think we all just started to figure that out. We were limited on what we could do, but what we could do was have 4 people randomly shuffled if they wanted to have a conversation. But there's more control you can have over breakouts, and you can do the same kind of thing in Zoom, which is you can have topic tables. Make a breakout room, give it a name. Maybe it's the small museum group. Maybe it's the whatever topic. And some people can, okay, well then I have a better understanding, and I can join a conversation like, oh, this isn't really this isn't the what is it, the high boy when you start walking up and you walk away with your wine glass because it isn't quite what you want to be talking about. You can have the opportunity to kind of graze and kind of see where you are if you have rooms that are more dedicated to certain types of topics. I like having that kind of control because it's rude to, if you walked in a room and I immediately walked out, that'd be very rude. But now within Zoom, I guess we're so used to people shuffling in and out.
Mm-hmm. Right, absolutely. And it seems to me that are there different, I'm thinking in terms of, you and I run museum associations, and so it's a slightly different type of event usually, but in terms of the typical events that museums run, they're the gallery talks, the docent tours, the lectures, and the like. And one of the categories, of course, of just when people get together in real life is very often with funders or with donors and that type of a thing. And how has that gone in this past year? Have you heard anything about how museums actually interact with people to do their fundraising or their friend raising? And are there any tips and tricks for that kind of activity?
Yeah, there's some a hybrid event that happened at the Briscoe Western Art Museum. It was a Night of Artists exhibition gala that they had hybrid, and they were able to. It was an auction with some live streaming elements attached to it. I thought that was interesting. It was an interesting approach to the gala, to an auction, all in that kind of way, in a hybrid approach. So yeah, I mean it's happening already. Like I said, it's not evenly distributed, but it's happening somewhere. And I think there's some interesting cases coming up out there. But it looks like we're getting close to time.
We are, as a matter of fact. Thank you. Appreciate it, Alex, and everyone for participating today and viewing this. You can access the recording on the Museum Learning Hub website, museum-hub.org, under the Recent Webinars tab at the top of the page. Visit the forum on the Museum Learning Hub website to ask any additional questions related to this presentation or any other tech questions. And finally, please join us for the third and final technical workshop of Module 2 called Live Streaming with Multi-Source Content with, once again, David London of the Peel Center in Baltimore. Thanks again, Alex. Appreciate your expertise on this, and thank you, everybody, for attending today's workshop. May you be safe, may you be well, and may you have a superior day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye.